Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm your host, Tapon. This is the 400th episode of the WanderLearn show, and I thought I would celebrate it by celebrating one of my predictions that I made a long time ago, back when the episodes were just starting out, when I was just starting this WanderLearn show. And it is about the stock-to-flow model that Plan B made for Bitcoin. For those who are not familiar, you can go to the upper right-hand corner to see the original video that I made in May of 2020. It was right during the pandemic, and he was coming out with this new model. And in it, he postulated that Bitcoin has been following this kind of steep climb during every 4 years, where it gets a new equilibrium, a new average price. And he had shown how it had done so well in the past. And I predicted that his model, even though it was great at predicting the past, it will not be so good at predicting the future. And I got so much flack, so much criticism at that time, back in 2020 and 2021 as well. People telling me like, Francis, this is going to age like spoiled milk, or this has already aged like spoiled milk. And a lot of people who criticized me didn't understand the fact I wasn't predicting that it was going to fail tomorrow. I was predicting that it was going to end in 2 or 3 cycles. In other words, roughly 8 years or something like that it would take for it to finally fail. And here we are a little bit less than 8 years later, and it has failed. In the middle of every year, I have been reviewing my performance in that prediction of how the stock-to-flow model is doing. And is it meeting it or not? And last year in 2025, in the middle of 2025, I said that even though it's kind of hurting in the middle of 2025, it would completely fail in 2026 because I was predicting a bear market for Bitcoin. And then it would truly separate from the 2 standard deviations that the model allows. And again, reviewing the model is kind of a ridiculous model. It posits that, the price of Bitcoin should be anywhere between $100,000 to $1 million, which is, to me, not very useful. It's like, great, that's like saying price of gold should be anywhere between $1,000 and $10,000. Great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell me something I don't know. It's not a very useful model. To give you an idea of how optimistic the stock-to-flow model was, it failed to even live up to its most dire predictions. In other words, the low end of the model, it's finally fallen below that line. So there's 2 standard deviations, and you can see on one chart, it has it in dark blue. And then light blue. Light blue is kind of like, this is the danger zone. And now we're out of light blue, which means we're not even in the ballpark, the vague ballpark that Plan B gave stock-to-flow. And by the way, it's even worse than that, because stock-to-flow model, there's not just one. There's 3 models and probably more out there. And he created one particular one that was celebrated. It was called the cross-asset model. And that failed spectacularly already last year. I mean, it was so far off. Maybe 2 years ago, it was far off. It was predicting Bitcoin of 288,000 like several years ago. And we're right now trading in the 60,000 range. It's just doing far, far worse than the model would predict. And I stated this back 6 years ago. I said, why it would fail is that it doesn't allow for diminishing returns. The model is one of these things that just stares up exponentially every single 4 years, and it doesn't allow for the fact that an asset grows, and that defies the laws of physics, as I would say. That was the number one reason. In physics, everything eventually has to, nothing grows up exponentially forever. Nothing. It just eventually has to plateau at some point. The laws of physics don't allow for something to replicate, because eventually it's going to consume all the resources in order to replicate that fast and to grow that fast. And so there's just built into everything logarithmic regression. And so you can use that theory to look at any high-flying stock, whether it be Tesla, Apple, Google, or whatever, or Walmart. All these stocks eventually kind of had to kind of slow down their incredible growth. And I just predicted, well, Bitcoin's going to do the same thing. And the model of the stock-to-flow model didn't allow for that. So that was the number one reason. Plan B blocked me when I gave the reasons why it would fail. And I said, it's doomed. It's a doomed model. And he just, instead of trying to intellectually debate me or to confront it, he just said, you know what, I'm going to block him. And he blocked me on Twitter. Now, it's kind of interesting because if you look at his YouTube page, he has stopped updating. So before last year, in 2025, he was still doing these monthly updates, kind of touting and trumpeting his wonderful stock to flow model, saying, hey, we're on track, don't worry, we're going to do all right. And now in 2026, where the bear market has clearly set in, he is humbly kind of withdrawn him. I predicted that he would eventually quiet down and just disappear, but he still has millions of followers. He still has a huge YouTube following of 217,000 followers on YouTube. And so it's costing him a pretty penny for not putting out any videos, in the sense that he's not going to be able to monetize videos that tout his theory. So it really shows that he really must be hurting, because he's basically foregoing income for trying to just not be humiliated by the market, which he has been, unfortunately for him, and unfortunately for me too. And that's another thing that sometimes people misunderstand me. I'm not a Bitcoin bear by any means. I think Bitcoin's going to do very well for the next 10 years and probably 20, but it's not going to keep doubling like it has been. It's going to level off, and that's what it's been doing. And that's why I predicted back in 2020, when he was predicting multi-million-dollar Bitcoin, I predicted Bitcoin of just over $100,000 by the end of this decade, which was a very bold prediction, because Bitcoin was trading around $4,000 to go up to 100,000. But for some, that was just not high enough. It's like, well, and I think it's going to go more than 100,000. It might go to 200,000 by the end of this decade. But I said, just over 100,000, and I think we're going to get easily over 100,000. We're going to come out of this bear market, and we're going to do well again. So I'm not pessimistic at all. So what's my take on stock to flow? I'm probably not going to do a 2027 video of the stock to flow model, just because at this point, I think I've proven my point. All I needed to do is to fall out of the two wide bands. But I do believe that it will, maybe in 2027, if not 2028, go back to the lower end of that band before the band shifts up, and the 4-year cycle again is going to shift away, and then it'll be hopeless. It'll never be able to get back into any of the bands. So it's possible it'll touch the lower end, and maybe Plan B will get excited about that. But I think at some point he's just going to have to come up with a new story. And finally, in Plan B's defense, way back when he introduced it, he didn't say that it was going to be good forever, and he loves to tout the phrase, all models are wrong, some are useful. That to me is a kind of a cop-out, because that's like saying, well, here's this valuable model I want you to all to follow, but just remember, it's probably wrong. And like, okay, well, then why are you telling me something that you think is going to be wrong? So it's kind of a either way. And he sets himself up always like, either way, I'm going to be right. So if my model's wrong, I told you it was going to be wrong. I told you all models are wrong. And he sets up a model that has so many different possible price ranges, and he sets up many different models. One, the cross-asset model, which has this totally Panglossian view of Bitcoin, is going to hit these high levels. And then another model that is more conservative. So if Bitcoin underperforms, then the conservative model pulls out. If it goes to the moon, well, I had that other model. Anyway, that's why I just don't find him a very intellectually honest person for somebody who, an analyst who just gives these vague things. It's just not very useful and practical and usable by any means. What's my prediction? I think this year we're going to continue seeing a bear market. Bitcoin has never had to face a true recession. It faced the recession of 2020, which was a very unusual brief recession, and that was quite unusual, unprecedented, and it was very quick down and quick up. And what happened to Bitcoin during that quick depression or recession during the COVID crisis? It collapsed. The price of Bitcoin collapsed in that brief downturn. And it was formed in the 2008 recession. So there has no history of going through a true recession. And my guess is that if we go into a recession, which I think we will by the end of this year, maybe next year, but it's just, we can't put off the recession forever, then Bitcoin will truly then hit new lows that it had that nobody expects it to hit. Things like, a price of $40,000 or something like that. That's when people will truly capitulate. And we're going to hit a brand new low that is unprecedented. We'll stay down low for a while. And finally, we'll climb out of the recession and we'll go back to six figures. But that it might take us to 2027, 2028 to finally climb out of this mess that we're going to be heading into. So I think this mess is just getting started. I don't think this is the beginning of a bull market. I think we're just still going to prolong bear market because right now the stock market is still humming, and the stock market won't hum forever. And I think it will go down. Bitcoin will be probably the first to get out of the doldrums. It's a good asset to grab. It's the first asset to go down and the first asset to go back up for following the market cycles. It's very sensitive to interest rates and sensitive to monetary policy. So that's why it tends to be a visionary. It also trades 24/7, 7 days a week. So that helps also. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Anyway, I want to thank all the subscribers to my podcast and my YouTube show. Again, episode number 400 for my podcast. Just go to search for WanderLearn, one word, and become a subscriber if you're not already. And I appreciate it. And tell me what you think about the stock to flow model and if you think there's any hope or what other predictions you have for the Bitcoin price. In the upcoming episodes, I'll be interviewing a guy named Nenad, who is a incredible traveler. He's a Serbian who has been going all over the world on a kind of mediocre passport and on a very low budget. And he's just an inspiring tale. He hitchhikes everywhere. He couch surfs everywhere. He's just an amazing guy. I met him 15 years ago, and it's just amazing to follow his journey. So I'll be having, I think, about 5 episodes featuring him. They'll all be short episodes. So make sure you subscribe to listen to those episodes featuring Nenad. And again, this is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this WanderLearn show. I am now using Substack.com to deliver my podcast and weekly newsletter, so please subscribe to my free Substack newsletter by using the link in the show notes. Or, if you've got a good memory, browse to ftapon.substack.com. Why ftapon? Well, it's my first initial and my last name. In fact, whatever social media app you use, including YouTube, if you search for ftapon, you'll find me. So connect with me. My website is also ftapon.com. Do you have an idea, question, or comment? Leave me an anonymous voicemail at speakpipe.com/ftapon. Lastly, become a WanderLearner by joining my paid subscriptions on Substack or patreon.com/ftapon. Wherever you join, I will reward you regularly. Tell your friends to subscribe to the WanderLearn show. If you review the WanderLearn show, I'll share your review on a future episode. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.